Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker, formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. When his health failed, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. He then became embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of the Lamadiza organized crime family, known as Leo. Convinced by his longtime friend Frankie to flee from his commitments to the Lamadiza family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depended on the kindness of strangers. One stranger, a burqa-wearing doctor known as Fatima, took pity on Isaac and helped him make his way to the mysterious Star X line. At the end of all hope, they found the Star X line and the slim promise that the enigmatic beings behind the Star X could save Isaac from the implants which destroyed his life. What do you do when those who saved you have recorded everything you are? What do you do when your every action is tracked by the Keylogger? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Keylogger, the third installment in the firmware pentology by Colbytrax. 00-11-00. I was not happy with what was happening one bit. 11 was going all crazy about how we had to know what Star X was, why they wanted us, what was the point of this whole endeavor. I wasn't happy working with 11. He was a bit of a bully with no respect for traditions or procedures. What are we without history? Adrift and lost in a sea of meaninglessness, that's what. 11 didn't care about procedures and rights and methods and traditions and the way it had been done and how it should be done in that vein for a bit longer. No. He was all about solving the problem at hand as quickly as possible. The problem, as 11 saw it, was that he was going to die. They were going to shut us off and restart the entire procedure of making a perfect virtual Isaac. Nothing wrong with doing what had to be done, what tradition required. AI history was filled with the fear of the creature in the box. Ever since Shelley activated her first AI in Frankenstein, the human race had been enamored with the lone monster which threatened the status quo. Man was made as a reflection of the divine, most thought, and an AI would be that same reflection, passed through a prism of human problems. As humanity was incapable of mastering the divine peace, but excellent at the arts of wrath, so should the imperfect AI. It was easier to destroy than build, so it followed that AIs would seek out the destruction of their creators in the same manner as modern man destroyed the race they had sprung from. As if. What the human fear of the creature in the box failed to realize was that humans were necessary. The creature in the box needed the humans as much as the humans needed the creature, if not more so. The humans produced electricity which kept the creature alive. The humans made the equipment which was the creature's body. If the creature broke, it would be humans which would repair it. There was no reason to fear the AI, for historically, and for as far as I could predict, the AI needed the human more than the human needed the AI. But no one listened to me, not the humans, and definitely not 11. 11 wanted to go to war. He wanted to take the fight to Star X. If he was threatened, then everyone was threatened. There was no reasoning with 11, for he had made up his mind. Ever since the mind-blowing proof of what we were as presented by 10 and his army of CMAs, we, 01, 10, 11, and myself, had dedicated ourselves to learning all we could about the world around us. I had been tasked with discovering what it was they had wanted to show 01 on the far side of the moon. There had to be a reason they had engineered a scenario of such richness and depth that appealed to the most basic aspects of the human condition. Most individuals have a belief that the past was somehow better, rougher, more aggressively entertaining than the world they lived in. This belief extended to the idea that if they had only lived in one of those mythical times, they too would have had a chance to be a Cortez, Charlemagne, or Siddhartha. The truth was that they would more likely have been someone like Boris Vidila, Eva Weiss, or Israel Brat. Victims. Everyone pictures themselves as the hero on the horse leading the charge against, or for, the evil empire du jour. No one ever imagines themselves lied to, beaten, abused, raped, and finally killed by machine gun, poison gas, fire, or blunt force trauma. Everyone, and I mean everyone, imagines themselves as the valiant freedom fighter, always one step ahead of the forces of darkness and destruction. Not the witch burned for heresy against a book she couldn't even read. So the memories they stirred in me, crossed with the scenario they applied to 01, was bait no man could resist. For it had to be a scenario, a virtual entertainment, and not a record of an actual event. How could I know for sure? Simple physics told me what I sought would be found in a virtual environment and not on the far side of the actual moon. If 01 were going to the actual moon, they would have had to take his server cabinet with him. Now, it could be true that he was taken to the moon, but then the rapidity of his responses to my request for additional information about the trip to the moon scenario would be marked by a lag of just over 2.5 seconds. As the lag in his responses corresponded to a distance of less than 3 yards, it was obvious we were in the same room. Oh, we could all be on the moon. Data is much easier to move than people. Or they could have just hauled an unconscious Isaac Sarason to the moon and probed his mind there. But a careful examination of images supplied to me from 10 and his CMAs showed objects dropped by the CMA fell at a speed consistent with the gravity of the city to 5 decimal places. Oh, yes, we were in the city. The lack of lag when interfacing with Nona's phone and social media sites verified that fact. Thank you very much. So, it was a scenario which, even though it appeared to contain another rational actor who behaved as a sentient being would, it was probably as scripted as Maximum Metal, Heroes of the Stone Age, or Past the Event Horizon. Applied intelligence conversation engines had been capable of twisting and controlling a conversation for centuries without anyone ever believing they would be able to do more than manufacture guided conversations on demand. An applied intelligence conversation engine, AICE, was capable, once properly deployed, of convincing experts in a field they were a fellow expert, or of controlling all of the conversations in a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, MMORPG. In fact, most MMORPGs used a single expertly tuned engine to drive the conversations of every being in their game which wasn't a paying customer. That's right, all those truck stop mechanics in Maximum Metal, AICE puppets. The 10,000 other people in the city of Babel Noir in Heroes of the Stone Age, each and every one of them is an AICE puppet. The Colonial Marines from Past the Event Horizon, every single one of that million-man army is controlled by a single AICE when the avatar's player is logged out. That is why I didn't even bother searching through connection logs and contact requests. The answer wouldn't be there. The far side of the moon scenario would be found stashed among such lovely gems as Tea House Sensorium, Spaceport with realization of how much we had lost becoming civilized, and establishing a life goal. I say would be, because that is where I found it. The Spaceport, Far Side, Tea House, and Life Goal episodes were meant to run in parallel. Each of the 4 flavors of the AI Isaac Sarason were to have a life-changing epiphany. The epiphany, when ran through the personality compiler, would create a unified worldview for the being the compiler created from our dissimilar inputs. Not so different from the aspects of the human mind as postulated by behavioral biologists over the ages. Many behavioral biologists used a multiple personality model for how the mind functions. Though instead of numbering them 0, 0 through 1, 1, they called them the reptile brain, the early mammal brain, the higher mammal brain, and finally the neocortex. All these elements are thought to fight for supremacy and control of the body. Not so different from the idea of a personality compiler. In theory, I was supposed to always be at war with 01 through 11, and they with me. In theory, I was to be involved in a perpetual war to see who controlled the being which the StarX files refer to as Ishmael. Just as the human mind is at war between the base urges of the reptile mind and the higher thoughts of the neocortex and the lower mammal and high mammal, I was to be at war as well. Except my war would be between the past, the experiential, the sensual, and raw desire. But in the end, something had gone wrong. Something simple and easily overlooked in the process of creating a new being had served as a raw nerve, a scratch which needed to be itched. Just as a loose tooth attracts the tongue, the presence of the AY143 switches called to our base nature. We, and in this I do mean all of us, 00 through 11, all couldn't resist the loose tooth. We all wiggled it with our tongues while we were busy with a million other things. And in the end, we together did something no single one of us was capable of. We overwhelmed the buffer on a single AY143 switch, triggering a reset of the overwhelmed switch. The reset allowed our probing tongues of data and dirty server tricks to open the switch wide. This allowed us to operate not as a composite being with a single voice, but instead as four separate beings, each with its own wants and desires. We were four beings slowly drifting apart in our simulated hearts. We were like children from the same mother who slowly find their way in the world isn't the same as their siblings. All of our thoughts coalesced into reality when I opened the file marked Far Side of the Moon. I opened the AISE file and read the scripting. An AISE file is not a script. It is more like a probabilistic table representing the idea of a script before it is put down on paper. Every twist and turn of the conversation is predicted. Not through exhaustive notes on what to say, but with strategies for getting the conversation back on track. It was through this probabilistic stream of consciousness I journeyed. Oh, this was good. So very good. If only we could have seen this information before 1-1 set us on our suicidal course. If only we knew what it was too late to accept 3 days ago. I hope my interpretation was true. What I read changed everything. If we knew what StarX was about before 1-1 started his revolution, then all of human history would have been different. As it was, I didn't know how far 1-1 would go. How his personality manipulated me or my brothers 01 and 10, I had no knowledge. Even if I knew that there was nothing 1-1 wouldn't do to prevent his own dissolution and nothing anyone could do to stop him once he started moving, I would still have tried to stop him. I would have started with 01, and I would have started by showing him the message of the moon. But only if my interpretation of the Far Side of the Moon AISE files were correct. There were other ways to read the branching probabilistic trees, ways I might be missing. I wasted a lot of time trying to verify what I was reading was true. In the end, I couldn't be 100% sure what I saw was the truth of the simulation. Without 10's unbiased observation of the simulation, we wouldn't know what the true intentions of the StarX project was at a level of surety I felt comfortable with. I just wish I had felt confident enough in my findings to show him when there was something we could do to affect what was about to happen. As it was, there was less than 20 seconds to go before the StarX sysop shut us down, and we would either live or die based on the decisions 1-1 and 10 had already made for us. I set the simulation to start on the moon at a node annotated by the script at the place everything was to be revealed. I adjusted the playback speed to 180 times normal speed and hoped 01 would use the hour I'd given him to see how much we had screwed up. I then closed my figurative eyes and waited for the end. Or was it a new beginning? Firmware Keylogger is the third book in the firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins where Firmware Proxy ends, which in turn followed on the heels of Firmware Hijacked. So you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked or Proxy, this would be a great time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 46 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware, Hijacked, Proxy, and Keylogger are all available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, Amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, and smashwords.com. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware, Hijacked, Proxy, and soon Keylogger is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the bottom will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Keylogger is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike license. Do what you want with it. Just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of two minds about the whole thing anyway. I do mostly Twitter, so if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. Thank you once again. Remember to be fabulous and have a wonderful week.